Welcome back to The Unpopular Opinion Becoming Popular. My name is Yana the Heretic, and this week we are going to uncover an entirely new quarter. We are in the quarter of initiation, which is all about the mind and how we absorb information. And we're finally at this place to be able to channel something new and discover instead of just shedding and releasing and remembering. We're still thinking about how the past has altered us throughout time, because we are now in gate 13, which is the gate of the listener. The fellowship of man is the keynote. And here we still are in the crux of looking at, how our conditioning has really shaped us from the very beginning. At the very beginning, we were children, we're babies, that have needs. And the needs are obviously our basic needs being met is like food, shelter, water, love, care, nourishment, communion with others. So this takes us back to, our very first conditioning state, where we are conditioned by our family and how they do things. Some families allow their kids to roam around by themselves. Some families shelter their kids super intensely. So it really shows up how we have been conditioned throughout life, because we still operate on these things to some degree. Obviously, we branch out of our family's conditioning, at least some of us do, and we don't tend to fully agree with or just regurgitate, the past that our, grandparents, like their beliefs. We don't always take the exact thing and become that exact person, but some of us do. So we're really looking at, how this conditioning has changed, how we've made decisions in the past, and, really propelling ourselves off of that place into, now absorption, and really listening to people, being interested in really catching the seed, the food for thought. And the gate 13s attract, the magic, the secrets, the things that are spoken only once in time. This transit is filtering from the 1st of February to the 7th, and we are also in the Godhead Kali now. She is a preserver of fairness and balance for people and people's needs, and she has these very high principles, and there is no way to not follow Kali's principles, or else you will be destroyed. So she's the destroyer of ignorance, and our personal ignorance, the ignorance of evil, and really getting to the heat of all the things that need to completely vanish right away. And she conquests this ignorance and this ego that is, really sculpted from a greedy place. So this is yet again another double-edged sword, where we see how, we have listened to people, and the principles that we have carried with us throughout time, and, seeing how, is this really truly me acting on the things that I've learned, and I'm keeping them to myself like a gatekeeper, or am I going to be able to share this knowledge? And, how is the fairness come in for not just my own needs, but everybody's needs? And we'll see more of that next week. This is definitely the gate that marks the cross of the sleeping phoenix. So that is really how we come from the ash. You know, we rise from the ash every single year. So the 13 is listening and absorbing in order to really become something new by the end of the next year. So our conditioning is at the very core of our identity, right? So this is an identity center gate. It is reaching up to the throat. These people do listen very, very well, but they're not always listening to care or to show emotion or sympathy or empathy. They're more so looking for the experience. They're looking for the key to their own structure, or they just end up in places where things are going on and they depict the truth. You know, they get to share the truth of how the things actually happened in that time frame. You know, so they attract, you know, people. Like, there's some of us that are like, oh, I don't know why that person just told me their whole life story all of a sudden, or why they felt comfortable to do that for me. There is a good chance you have this gate, because these people attract, like, kind of like the most, like, other people's secrets, the things that people don't say often out loud, especially. And so they're kind of just like observing, and, you know, they don't necessarily get super identified with it. You know, a lot of them might, especially if they have an emotional gate here and there, or emotional definition or non-emotional. Really depends on how that comes through. But most of the time they're just looking, hey, what's the lesson here? You know, okay, like, my grandfather believes this, but my mother believes this. You know, it's just collecting this data and really seeing how people change throughout time. And it is considered to be the fellowship of man, because, you know, we listen to each other and we start to commune and we start to build these bonds with others, and it creates this community or fellowship, and these people are, you know, building something for the future, for the collective. This is a sensing gate, or it's in the sensing circuit, and it is collective. So this is really sensing, not just necessarily words, but it's also sensing, you know, who in the room has, you know, the knowledge that I'm looking for. You know, maybe their body language is showing something about them. So this is not just necessarily listening, but also sensing, you know, oh, like, I really want the information from this person for the reason, you know, maybe unknown, energetically, you know, I think this person has the knowledge that I wish to take on. And a lot of these are happy surprises and accidents, or, you know, these are people that are gurus, or, you know, have a shamanic nature upon them, you know, or they're a monk, you know. So these are things that, you know, you're kind of looking for, like, the monk's quotes almost. It's like their entire lesson wrapped up into one sentence of their entire, like, how their consciousness came to be, you know. It's like that one quote that you see on, like, somebody's feed that, like, inspires your soul. So these are really, like, the missing little pieces that you're looking for, that starts to build this kind of sense, the sensibility to move through the world as you, and, you know, you carrying the truth along with your beliefs that other people also share, and exchanging those things for the better or worse. And that's just how it plays out, because there's very, very different lines that happen in this gate. The lines are, they hear through the lens of empathy, bigotry, pessimism, fatigue, the savior or the optimist. So they're really like channeling these types of lessons for people. You know, there's definitely some negative ones, but they tend to form a fellowship pretty easily because they just emanate this type of energy. You know, oh, like we could see how, you know, society is really built on these types of fellowships, especially today. You know, there's things that we just blatantly don't understand about the world. You know, there's a ton of people, you know, going through their trends where, you know, we've got a ton of political trends, you know, the MAGA, or everyone's becoming Christian, or, you know, all the stuff that's going on in the world that, you know, like a ton of people don't really understand, other than it just being a trend or people following their role models. And, you know, this is definitely a time for your cup to be filled. And it's definitely a time to remove the ignorance that has been playing out in your life. So, you know, instead of just dominating a conversation, you know, let your cup be filled, you know, and see what can come of it, you know, see how it affects you when you start to listen instead of dominating a conversation. Or start to actually sense, you know, between the lines of what is being said, you know, because emotions, frequencies, voice, it all really truly matters how it is said, and the story that is being, you know, that's coloring the air. So definitely take the time to sit, to observe. So these could be definitely people that are the quiet ones in the room, or the elephant in the room. You know, they may be the quiet one in your group of friends, where they just observe and listen. And it is a projector gate because of that, because they have this time frame of observation where they're just really seeing how things play out. And this does make for really amazing, you know, orators in time, you know, that like, they know exactly how these events have happened because they were there, and they know the real truth, and they can tell you all of the details of that time frame to prove that they were there. Or they could become historians or comedians. You know, they definitely share their experience and the things that have been passed down through them. So, you know, this is definitely looking at ourselves as kids, that moment where we branched out from our, you know, home conditioning. This is like, oh, well, you know, my friend has a tree house. Mom, like, why can't I have a tree house? And then mom's like, this or this, it's too dangerous. And then us taking that and hating it, and then just like going out and hanging out with their friends instead, and like seeing how their family plays a role on our beliefs, and our conditioning starts to change throughout time. And then you'll reminisce and be like, well, yeah, I remember when I was 12, this is like what I believed in. And, you know, I've changed so much from there because of this or this person that I've met, you know, or this and this schooling that I took, or this book that I read. So it's really seeing how our process of like absorption has changed who we are throughout time. And this is really highlighting the beginning of this new stage of absorption for us. So we're magnets to information that we wish to receive, and you know, really just sit with the information for a while, instead of just like boasting about it, or, making it your truth instantly, because there could be more things hidden that are revealed in this information before you start sharing it with others. Get deep into the nitty-gritty. These people sometimes will die with their secrets, unfortunately, because nobody ever asks them what they know. So, if they do have 33s come in, which is the gate of privacy retreat, that is the harmonic to this. These people are ones that take in only certain things. They have their boundaries, and the 33s tend to spark, the 13s to tell them their secrets. Okay, like, what do you know? You spent all this time with this person, like, what was that like? So, and that is why the hexagram is like got this tiny little opening, and that is like where I consider that all the secrets are being held. It's very deep within, and we see that is the only yin part, is like, our sensitivity to like this little secret that we hold, or big secret that we hold, and all this yin is just on top of it, just concealing it. So we're definitely gonna have a lot of mental shifts this entire quarter. We are gonna be deeply in resonance with other people and sparking each other's interest, and seeing how Kali plays out with her, just really intense, like, leveling of the planes of reason. It is like, you can't say no to Kali. So we'll see how that plays out in the next 3 weeks. The questions of the week that we are exploring is, what data is flying around in your head this week? Is there a common theme coming through? Do you listen well to others, or do you feel distracted typically, or deaf? Pay attention to the way you affect others when you are deaf to their knowledge. Obviously everyone thinks differently. Even I feel very ADHD in my mind, so I apologize if I don't listen. I don't just start to nod along most of the time, and because it's nice to be able to listen to people in your life and really like bond, instead of just completely not registering what somebody said to you and just being ignorant. So this is what we're really looking at, is how we're ignorant to other people, and really leveling that, destroying our ignorance, being able to bond, and that's really important this day and age. What information are you looking to receive right now, and how would it change your life? Spend some time writing various questions you would ask some of your role models. Practice evolving your speech and interests in others, and interests in the needs of others specifically. What do other people need? Why do they need it? What is their history? What is their lineage? What's really missing for others, and what can you gain from knowing, their history, their lineage, their knowledge? How is this world actually running? Who's really playing the main roles here?